I think we are live.
Can you tell me if you can hear us?
Yes, that would be great. Okay, we have some yes.
Great.
Dobry wieczór.
So,
Hello.
Dobry wieczór, welcome. We would like to welcome everybody to this webinar with Liv. We had some technical difficulties, but we are on, so we are very, very happy.
Let me switch to Polish for a moment, okay? Just to let people know. Kochani, będziemy ten webinar prowadzić po angielsku i wszystkie informacje, ten webinar jest nagrywany, więc później na LinkedInie, na YouTubie będziecie sobie mogli to obejrzeć jeszcze raz z napisami. Gdyby pojawiły się jakieś problemy z tym, to dawajcie znać, ja wtedy będę podsyłał albo transkrypcję, albo wymyślimy coś innego, tak żebyście mogli mieć nagranie. Okay, so let's get back to English. I was laughing before we started because there is an airport in Madeira that is a very rough place to land, and whoever been to Madeira and had the second round trying to land, that was an experience. So I think it was similar to what we experienced today, Liv, wasn't it?
So, welcome, Liv. Welcome, everybody. We are very curious where you are right now. In what place, what city, what country? Could you write?
Yes, at the very moment I'm at home, meaning about 2 hours drive to the Arctic Circle. I live up in the north of Sweden. And we have just come out from a super cold period of 35 below. And now it's like 0, and it feels like summer for us.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Liv.
Can you let us know where are you from?
Yeah, Coventry, UK.
Wonderful. Rio de Janeiro.
Wow. Wow.
Welcome. Pomnoit, as far as I can remember.
Okay. So we'll be tracking this, and I have another question. Do you know Liv? Have you met her before? Have you had a workshop with her? How many of you have met Liv before? Yes. Yeah, somebody read the book. It's kind of a meeting. Yeah. Yeah. So we have like a mix. Some people met you, Liv, and some people read the books. Some people haven't met you, but got interested probably by the topic, which is, I think, very important for many people. It's like my personal topic from many years. How to combine the two, how to merge, how to balance being vulnerable and yet powerful. And before we start, I would like to maybe introduce you, Liv, to the people they haven't met you. So maybe I start with something like this, that I met Liv, like, I don't know, 20 years ago at a long retreat in Estonia, I think. And I got, like, immediately I got very drawn to the way you were teaching and sharing NVC, and I felt like I really want to invite you to Poland to, like, introduce you to the people here and have them this way of teaching. So for many years you were coming to Poland, like sometimes many times a year even. And you were sharing NVC at the School for Trainers. And many people met you in Poland. So in Poland, I think you are quite known, and you really, like, impacted many people here. And we had like a long break then, but now I'm really happy. I'm celebrating that we are again doing something together, and I think it's gonna be something really beautiful. So about Liv more. Liv is a certified nonviolent communication trainer for many years, like 20 plus, right, Liv? Many years. So she's traveling all around the world, sharing NVC, and at the same time she lives in Sweden, and you love skiing, and maybe I didn't say something and you would like to add something.
Well, yes, I did take part in lots of trainings in Poland, but it's also due to you, Eva, who is really good at reaching out to people, finding ways to let people know that we have those beautiful tools. So it's always a pleasure to work with you, because you have so many clever ideas about how to reach out in a really good way. Yeah.
So I haven't mentioned, Liv, that you've also written. Thank you for the kind words, but I haven't mentioned that you also you have written 23 books, many in this area on nonviolent communication, and you created like your own method of transforming shame, right? Like this compass of needs.
Yeah. And it's funny when people talk about my books. I see also in the chat there. I had a funny feedback when I did. I think it was one of the last longer trainings. Well, it was in Norway this summer, and some person said, "Well, I was so surprised because Liv was so funny, and I didn't get that from her books." And I had to say that, I didn't have any humor in my book, so I'm glad to meet people.
That's a good feedback. Yeah.
Yeah.
Liv is very funny, you will see.
Yeah, but
Okay.
but yes, shame is one of my passions, as you said. It's
Mhm.
like it's been also a 20-year, working with shame with people and seeing that it's such a door to the theme of vulnerability and power. It's like such a door to recognize where I lose power and where I can reclaim it again.
Yeah. So I think maybe we could start from this, like clarifying what is vulnerability, because in Polish we don't even have like a direct translation. Like we don't have this word. So how would you like describe it for somebody who doesn't really know what it is, this quality?
Wow. What a good challenge this evening after having technical problem coming in here. It's great. To me, vulnerability is, well, maybe we could use a synonym would be sensitivity. It would be, another synonym would be like awareness of what is surrounding me, like, and what is inside of me, like a sense of being open and sensitive and ready to kind of to be soft, because of the softness of taking in impulses from the surrounding, like a small child that is born, a baby that is born. They're totally vulnerable. And what is a baby? It's a baby is a little individual that is impulses is everything for them. The impulses they get from the outside is everything they have to work on. It's like how they balance and try to find signals for the people around them or the surrounding around those impulses. So that for me is vulnerability, the sense of openness and willingness to kind of interact in some way, which is different for me than fragility, for example. I don't know if you have that word in Polish, but fragility,
we do.
Yeah, and that is kind of weakness, or being like a small baby is not weak, but it certainly is vulnerable. It is super powerful because it makes people smile. It makes people go like, oh. So there is some power there.
So there is some power, but like I think like this regular association with this is like being like not unprotected, and someone can harm you, can hurt you. So I think we fear this kind of, when we perceive it like this, we are really afraid to open up. So how can we do this? Because I feel there is power, there is something really great in there. So how can we help each other, or how can we help ourselves to not be so afraid?
Well, the Swedish word for vulnerability is actually being that. It is like a word that says it is possible to be wounded. It is possible. It's like a state of where it's possible to be wounded.
Yeah.
And that is true. It's like when I'm vulnerable, I'm also willing to kind of show up, even if I'm not fully sure what's going to happen. Like I'm open for what's going to happen. And maybe that will mean it will be painful sometimes. Maybe it will be really joyful sometimes. But it is a place where, yes, things can enter because I'm not just cool, calm, and collected. And I'm not sure if I answered your question. You said something else.
I think yes. I wonder what people think. What are your association with being vulnerable? Is it safe? Is it great? Is it cool? Is it a risk? What would you say? Because for me, for many years, it meant that I was like very ashamed that I felt vulnerable. I felt very sensitive. I think I'm like highly sensitive person, and I just felt more than my parents, maybe some friends, and I felt really like something is wrong with me. I'm not that cool that others that have like more, I don't know, they are more not so fragile and they don't feel so much. And I got also those comments from people around that something is wrong with me. So what would you say to someone who believes this, that something is wrong with me when I'm sensitive, I'm vulnerable?
Yeah, I mean, when people are in that state, of course, the beautiful thing is to be connecting. It's like a place where we don't want to be alone.
We have a comment. It's a risk, but worth to try, because I feel I'm alive.
Yeah. I think there's a quote, I can't remember who, it says, to be alive is to always be a little bit afraid. To be alive is to always be a little bit afraid. It's not my words, it's someone else's. And I find that beautiful, like being willing to kind of shiver and shake and still show up. And of course, in many cultures, it's not accepted. It's not a good thing. You should be strong, or you should be on top of things and not be so sensitive to things.
Sounds like a men's world. We've got another one, connecting with my inner honest power, open to be heard, fragile. And this one? Okay.
So, Liv, and what was your way to being vulnerable? Like, was it that you always perceived it as something good, something worth doing, or you had your own process?
For sure, I was not vulnerable for many years. Like when I was a child, yes, I have made it a study for many years. When I meet people from my childhood, I ask them, how was your perception of me? And many times they say you were very shy, you were very kind of withdrawn, we didn't know how to connect with you. And yes, I was very shy for many years. Like raising my hand at school was like really scary. And then I went traveling. I went traveling to see different cultures. Like I went to Asia, I went to Africa for long periods of time. And it was almost like I had to grow up to not be so dependent on always being safe, but actually being willing to be out there and take risks. So for me, that was one thing that kind of pulled me out of that place. And then, of course, all the work with shame. All the work with shame is also like a sense of getting to vulnerability, not to weakness, but to vulnerability.
So it brings some sadness, as the Agna says. I can refer to that. Not being able to just fully show up to the world with what you have to offer, because shame is too big and you're too little, too small.
Yeah.
Big thing.
Yeah,
Oh.
that is a thing. Like how yeah, thank you, Jayaraja. I think it probably is David White. Or maybe we can look at it. But yeah, it's sad. The fear that we have is sad when it takes over. Like when we let emotions steer us instead of talk with us. Like I would say, emotions are really good to have. They make us learn, they make us reflect, they make us connect. And then when they take over, when they become the driver, we are usually we're going to end up somewhere small and dark many times.
Yeah, I think this is like a common association that being vulnerable means you have no control over your feelings, right? And for me, when I met NVC, it was the first moment when I could look at my vulnerability like something really precious, like something that really connects me to life. And I think this is like, I wonder if also you found some perspective in NVC on like transforming shame or like something like this.
Yes. I mean, I found that if I'm willing to let people see me when I'm not perfect, like we came in here, this talk sweating, like, oh, the technical part, we're kind of, where are we? And to not have to be perfect, because if we have to be perfect, we will never have deep relationships. If I cannot stand it, if other people see my flaws, if other people see the stuff that I most want to hide, of course, but when I'm able to kind of deal with that, it feels awkward, that it feels vulnerable, that's the moment when I will connect more deeply and I let people into my life. And even more so to me, with the sense with the power, it's like when, like, I have written 23 books, and I would say, without, I'm not the best writer. I have lots to learn. And my first books, I feel like, I don't want to look at them because they really aren't as good as I would like them to. And if I would wait to become perfect as an author, my book will never be out. So I've learned to also to go for my dreams, even if it means I'm not perfect. Like, I'm ready to notice that, oh, that wasn't so beautifully put, or I look back in my books and I say, this is not like really well written, but I can take that, and because I want to go for my dreams. I want to go for what this life is, what we can do with it.
So,
and I
Liv,
think, yes.
sorry.
No,
It sounds like vulnerability can be like a ladder with steps on the different heights. And when you're vulnerable, you're reaching the one you're ready for. And we're not vulnerable. You're just looking at them, at the ones on the top, dreaming of them, but never being able to make any step towards them. Is it something like that?
Maybe. And it's something, when with your question before, Eva, about the process of NVC, the process of shame, it's like, one of the things I found, that when I can recognize and remind myself that I'm just human, I have a need for acceptance, I have a need for belonging. I have a need for dignity, which 3 needs I very often use to come back. When I can remember that in moments when I feel like a fool, or that I'm just human. It is human to feel this way, to feel awkward sometimes, to feel shy, to feel fear. Then usually I can kind of lean towards that. Then I can kind of, it's not about being superhuman. It's not about being better than others. It's just about, living the life I can live.
Liv, I think that's the question for you, and only you can answer, I'm afraid.
Yeah, so the question is this the webinar about the communication, our communication about what vulnerability is?
Okay, thank you.
There. Okay, so if when you said something like when we are perfect, we will not have this deep relationship we are so craving and so longing for. It struck me, it's like a paradox, because we want to be perfect to have this acceptance, to have connection, to be loved, and we not gonna get it if we strive to be perfect. But when we let ourselves be vulnerable, we are more likely to get there, right?
Yeah, and of course we want to kind of also, when we are not perfect, to show up, and that's where power comes in, like to show up as ready to clean up the mess we made, maybe to also not kind of expect others to do that, but to also say, yes, I messed up, and what can we do to clean it up? What can we do what can we do now? So it's a combination, I would say.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel that we are afraid, like when we feel strong and we don't let ourselves to be vulnerable, this kind of like a coping mechanism, like this is our protection, right? I'm not letting myself to be this soft and like to let things and life impact me. And what do I lose? What do I lose when I not let myself for this delicate state?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Like, what do we lose when we are always on top of things?
Yeah.
What do we lose when we are cool, calm, and collected?
Yeah.
I have a memory of, I think just in the beginning of NVC, and I was sitting at a big table with people, and there was a conversation going on, like people were connecting, people were chit-chatting, and I was just looking at people, and it was so obvious for me, like almost like for the first time, there are other people here. It's like I got out of myself and I saw, whoa, all this life is there. All this life is going on, and I can take part as much as I like. And there was something there that also struck me as I had been cut off for many years, like a sense of I was cool doing my thing, but I felt super lonely. I felt like I was never really connecting to people. And that was a moment when that shifted, like, this is where life is. This is where the fun is, to be deeply connected to people, not by doing my thing and not having like deep connections to share about it.
You also shared one time that like when you are only this soft and vulnerable, you are not, it's like not you are not in a full power, like you are in the fragility, you said. So can you say more about it?
Yeah, one of my inspirations lately has been a guy called Nassim Taleb. He writes about anti-fragility and fragility. Like he has claimed anti-fragility as his term. And he says fragility is when you break out of a challenge. And then we have the robust state that he talks about, where that we learn we want law and order so that we don't feel fragile anymore. And then we don't grow, but we feel safe. And then he claims anti-fragility, both for groups and individuals, which is when we grow from challenge, when we, not that we just survive the challenge, but that we actually grow from taking challenges. And to me, that is where vulnerability and power meets. The sense of where I can be powerful and vulnerable at the same time is when I flow with what life presents to me. I go with those challenges. It's not always easy, but communication is one of those things. That's why NVC is such a super tool, because it's one of the things where that we need in these moments.
Mm-hmm.
I really love what you said about not being connected to my vulnerability means I will not be able to grow. I think it was very alive for me when I was trying to connect to my vulnerability once I killed it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, for many of us, it's hidden very deeply underground somehow. Yeah.
So I think that many of us have also this fear that when I let myself to be vulnerable, I will feel more shame, more guilt, more those feelings which are very, very not pleasant, not comfortable. And I wonder, what would you say to that? Like, is there a way to transform those feelings in a way that they support us, not make us weaker?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just finalizing the work with the book that I wrote about how shame develops from early on, and like when we're born, and how it comes through in our lives. And one of the things is very clear when I read about shame, when I look at shame from different researchers and so on, is that yes, it does feel unpleasant. Shame, it just feels unpleasant, and it should be unpleasant in the same way as we want to be hungry when we need food, so that we react and give ourselves food. So there is something with that shame and guilt and all of those emotions, they feel not so pleasurable. And when we know that, when we kind of honor that, it doesn't feel so nice. It starts being more okay. It starts feeling more okay to be vulnerable, because we can hold it out and we can watch it. We can hold it in our hands and kind of study it, and then it doesn't take us. And there are many reasons why it feels uncomfortable. If we look at it like from a biological standpoint, but it certainly is a challenge that it doesn't feel totally joyful, that we can tingle, we can feel warm and cold, and some of us, we might blush, and then we feel ashamed over feeling ashamed, if we blush over blushing, and it's like a turmoil of one thing leading to the other. So it's we probably won't never get out of it feeling a bit uncomfortable, but discomfort can, even hunger can be okay to study and be with for moments. It won't kill you directly.
What do you mean it will not kill you directly?
Well, even hunger, even you can be hungry for some time before you die. And it's the same with these emotions. Sometimes we're so quick at changing them instead of just saying, well, this is how it feels. And we to be able to talk about them, find words, find colors, find forms of our emotions.
Sounds like something you said, and I'd like to refer to that right now. If you don't have to be perfect, it means I will not have to have deep relationships. So for me, it's about this deep connection with my shame, and if I won't let it happen, it means I lose the signal from the world, what's going on, and how I react. Do I really want to react?
Yeah.
Liv, and can you tell us more how you perceive this connection, this finding a balance between vulnerability and power? What is power for you? What is to be powerful?
Yeah, actually, before, when I was in the shower, just because before we were meeting, I had a sense that I was thinking, what is power actually? Like the question actually came, because it can be described in so many ways.
Yeah.
Some person said to be powerful is to have rich friends. It's not to be rich yourself, but it's to have rich friends that you can ask of support. And it says something about what power is. Power is not, to me, something I have on my own. Power is something I have with others. Then it's really a superpower. I can walk around and feel powerful in my own little woods, and that is fun. But the real fun comes when I can influence you and you can influence me, and we can create something together. And when I can also step out and say the things we used to create was fun, and nowadays I don't like what we create together, so I will find some other people to create the fun with. So it doesn't become dependency, but it does become deep connection and sharing strength, sharing ability. Like my mother is 87 at this year, and she used to be lousy at asking for support. And you might say that was because she was powerful and competent and so on. But actually, I think she's way stronger now when she kind of calls me and she asks me things. She asks for support. And it's like tangible how much power she has through getting ability to ask for support, to actually be willing to say, I need someone, I need this help. To me, that is super powerful.
Yeah. For some people, it will be like a sign of weakness, right? But it is not. It's really like when I can ask for help, it's really something, my asset.
Yeah.
Like my power.
Yeah. And then to share that space where we try to build the world we have together. It's, to me, that is like, it's quite amazing actually, that human beings, that we can even talk with each other. I can tell you about my inside. I can use some words, some symbols, and I can tell you, and you can tell me about what's going on for you. And we can kind of share that. To me, that's super powerful, that we can visualize a common thing. Like you and I ever met in November, and we talked about the event we're going to do together later on in the spring, and to even being able to visualize and talk about that. It's not to take for granted. It's like, that is a human superpower, to be able to do that, and then to put that into form, to be working with that, taking something from the inside and letting it be manifested on the outside. And then to be willing to risk that maybe the things I do on the outside will not be so good. And maybe then I will come back to my vulnerability and say, I wasn't that perfect that I thought. And then it's like builds on each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Liv, there are some questions. Would you like to answer them now?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, so Eva, so how overcome these steps of weakness before you can dare to show your vulnerability?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing is to ask that question. What can I do to dare to show that I need support, for example, that I feel lonely and I want someone to share some time with me, for example, and to be kind of willing to see that at first. So first step. To me, the second step would be something like acknowledging myself for doing that. To kind of acknowledge that, yes, I do feel weak. I want to show it to others, the stuff in me that is not so easy. And I'm scared. And then ask what needs of mine are stopping me? What needs of mine are making me silent? Can I acknowledge these needs somehow and meet them in some other way than staying silent and staying alone, staying lonely, maybe? To me, the vulnerability, how to uncover the ability for me is when we look at shame and we connect it to, not to me, like my identity, this is me, but when I connect it to my humanity, when I connect it to, it's there because I'm human, then there is usually more acceptance to it, that we do have all this. Of course, there's a lot that can be answered to this question, but I hope you get something out of that, Eva.
Do you have space for one more?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I love questions.
Yeah,
I
we
can imagine.
invite you to write the questions you have.
Yeah, we really want to give you some answers today. I have a question about shame. Is it uncomfortable, and it can become life-threatening when it is shame that is produced through the judgments of the social environment?
Yeah.
And I think it's there was supposed to be something else, but I can't figure out.
I think I get the question, but I'm not sure, Anke. We will see. and yeah, like I said, I'm writing on this book on shame from childhood to adulthood, and it's really clear that when we are children, as well as when we are in a situation where there's strong social judgments, where there's there's punishment maybe for if we show up in certain ways. Of course, then it's better not to show it. Like if there will be physical punishment if I show up in a certain way, then I would choose not to share these things with these people. So it's not that we should be vulnerable always. It's not like it's always the best choice. No, for me, vulnerability is at its best when it's also handled with care, when we are in a space where we can take risks, yes, but not so big. Like a small child that feels shame, they would, there's something like 15, 30 seconds before the shame starts becoming negative to the nervous system. The stress from the shame will be so big if they're not embraced by an adult. So it's similar when we are in a situation where there's pressure, where there is like real threat from the outside. So don't make yourself vulnerable because of you've heard about that it's a good thing, but really make good choices around it. I'm not sure if that answers what you were asking, Anke, but I hope you got something to think about.
Anke wrote that there are more parts to the question, probably somewhere.
If you're ready to write them down, Anke, I think it's a good moment, and we'll try to answer some other questions in the meantime. Would that be okay?
Yeah. Yes, let's do that.
Okay, wonderful. So this one from Yagna. I've heard once that asking for help is a way of dealing with things. It's not a proof of not dealing with them that made a change in me. Asking for help is a way of dealing with things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the core.
Yeah. It's great. Yes, it's to ask for help is the dealing with them. It is to ask for help is not saying I'm not gonna, care about it. No, when we ask for support, yes, that is the way to kind of get the support.
I can imagine, Liv, that the shame can be so overwhelming sometimes that even asking for help can be just too much for the nervous system and for the person. What can people do in such moments?
Well, I am noticing, for example, not right in this very moment, that my dog is outside and he's barking, and I'm trying to get someone to shut him up or let him in or something. And I notice that if I'm not able to kind of at the same time as I'm here and having this irritation, if I cannot soothe myself, if I cannot, calm myself down, it is not a good moment to ask for to be too open or to be too vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And for a small child, we might say, calm down to a child, for example. But a child doesn't know how to do that. We take for granted that we can do that, but it's actually something we learn as we grow older. And to be able to give ourselves self-empathy, to be able to calm ourselves down, but not to get stuck there. When it comes to vulnerability and shame, I always say to people, sure, use self-empathy as long as you need, but not a second more. But ask for support from others. Let other people be part of your process.
So you're saying that there's kind of an internal dialogue that you're making with yourself, and you have this dialogue until some time, and then when you overstep this, I don't know if I call it right, boundary or the limits, it's too much. And then what? So you're just stepping out from the circle of vulnerability to what? If I understand this correctly.
So let me make a very superfluous example. So I live in the north of Sweden,
Mm-hmm.
and if I go from here, I usually take a plane, and I usually take a morning plane, and the morning plane is full of people with black, blue, gray suits usually. And I come into the plane and I like color. So I remember once when I was in the middle of really exploring shame for some other event, and I had a very green, like super green jacket, like the green behind your face, Michael. And it was a really shining green. And I came into the plane and I immediately felt like, oh, I don't belong here. And like, it's almost like the thoughts in my head were kind of funny, but because they were like, they're going to throw me out. Can I really sit down beside all these businessmen? And I heard my own inner dialogue, and of course it was fun. It was like it doesn't make sense. Of course I have the right to be there with my green jacket, but I did feel vulnerable. And nowadays, in that time, I could say, yeah, that's how vulnerable I feel. I need acceptance. I need to be part. And then when I come to that place, I can say, and I want to choose to wear green. Not as a rebellion, not to say, I'm going to wear green because nobody else is, and I'm going to be so special. Or, no, I'm never wear green. I will just dress like everybody else. I want to have that sense of choice, which is somewhere in the middle, where I don't give in on my dreams, but I kind of notice them, how they are affected by the surrounding.
So you're just so you're just acknowledging the vulnerability at that moment, and you're just becoming sending some kindness to that from that moment. You say,
yeah, and it's one of those moments, like I tell it now, and it's probably like 10, 15 years ago. And I still remember it super clearly, even if it was like a very, mundane thing in life, but it really made me connect to how much I need acceptance. Like, I'm a human, I need acceptance, I need to be included.
Yeah,
And I
well, come
found
on,
that really beautiful.
yeah, you remembered, 3 colors of the suits and the green color of your jacket. I can imagine how big it was at that moment.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And there was no life crisis or big thing, but it really made me really safe with myself, that I know I will not try to be anything else than human.
Wow, so it can be a huge resource for yourself when you need it, and you never know when you're going to need it.
No. Exactly.
So I have a question to Jaya Raja, because you had the similar question, how feel shame. When you feel shame, how do you process it, Liv? So I wonder, Jaya Raja, if it was answered already, or you would like to hear more from Liv?
Yeah. Thank you, Jaraja, and hi. I would say that I have become super fast at processing shame. So one of my favorite is that, I love cross-country skiing. And even if I claim that I'm good at it, I sometimes fall. And of course, the first thing that goes through my head still after processing shame for a very long time, still the first thought that goes through my head is, did someone see me? Did someone notice that I'm falling and my skis and my ski poles are. And before I used to pretend I didn't think that. I would pretend that I'm cool and I would just get up. And now I take a breath and I say, this is the moment to remember that I'm human and that I do need people to kind of be of acceptance with me. And of course, no one will judge me for falling. They will probably care for me to see if I got hurt. But I do process it still with, usually I ask myself, so is this about acceptance, belonging, or dignity? For me, this question really kind of connects me to maybe not one of those needs, but to my humanity. And then usually it kind of fades away, or it becomes part of me feeling vulnerable and powerful. And in this moment, what I've learned also with your question, Jaraja, it's like, if I just ask myself, what do I need right now? I'm not so efficient in answering that if I feel shame. But I do, I am able to answer, is this about belonging, or is it about acceptance, or is it about dignity? Then it connects me to my humanness. And I think it differs from all of us. So we can work on how our own little special tools.
So there is like follow-up question from Jaya Raja. Can you say more what you mean by dignity?
Yeah. It took me some years to own that word. And for me, dignity, one way of seeing it is like, imagine there's a 4-year-old and she has done a drawing and she comes running to you and she says, look at this drawing. I made a horse that is running away with 3 other horses towards the sunset. And you look at the picture, and to your adult eyes, it looks like colors and a little bit of shapes. And the moment where you say something, you can either support the child to feel dignified, to have a sense that, wow, they managed to do this drawing, or you can take that away from them. And you probably all have had moments where you have showed up with dignity, like, look at my power, look at how powerful I am. I made this drawing, or I made this thing, whatever it is. And someone says, that's not horses. What is this crazy? The horses are not blue, or, whatever comment we might have. So that, to me, that is a story about how dignity, it's a very vulnerable place, and it's a very important place for, well, showing up with that I matter, showing up that it matters how I'm treated, how I treat myself, and how others treat me.
So I have one more question that sounds interesting. And are you open, Liv? Wonderful.
Sure.
So how to protect myself from a very judgmental environment?
Yeah. I mean, if we had more time, I would probably ask you a few questions to know what that means. But well, one thing is to not listen. One thing is to not listen for the judgments, and to listen inside of yourself, how you can take care of yourself. And of course, with nonviolent communication, we listen for, if there's a judgmental environment, we try to listen for the needs behind these judgments so that we can see the humanity in others. But maybe if it's a harsh environment, maybe we don't even want to do that before we care for ourselves, before we make sure we're safe, before we make sure that we can take it, that other people's, take other people's judgments. So sometimes the best choice is to withdraw, and sometimes the best choice is to try to interact and have communication about where does these judgments come from? What is important for these people? What are they actually dreaming about, and that comes out as judgments? But I wouldn't know like what my advice would be for you, depending on what situation you're in. But sometimes the best choice is to just go the other way. So it's not a should.
Mm-hmm. And by go the other way means you just step out of this environment. Let's say it's like a working environment, and you need this work to just provide to your family. And something happened, and you're just in the middle of a crisis, kind of a crisis, and what would be, I know it's a very general question, first of all, but is there any general signals or steps you should step out, when you should step out, or when you should just try to do something with that?
Well, as you said, it's a very general question, but I would say that if we don't have any moments of fun or enjoyment in trying to connect with people, if it all feels like work and pain and struggle, then I would start wondering if I'm doing because I should be a good girl, or I should be a good, NVC student, or I should do it because I read it in a book or someone said it, I should try. If it doesn't come from, I'm curious what would happen if I will listen to the needs from these people, then I wouldn't do it. Like, I believe that joy needs to be part of the path. The joy in at least finding some meaning in stretching myself. Otherwise, it's probably going to be some kind of self-punishment. But of course, like you said, it's very general, so we can, who knows?
I'm thinking, Liv, about being vulnerable as a man, and this is a big thing, because I remember what I remember from my childhood was something like, I'm too sensitive. And just life will be overwhelming for me as a man. So I tried to just be a good boy, be a good son, and because I really wanted to connect with my father, so I started to become harder and harder. So martial arts for many years and lots of stuff like that. And at some point, I just mentioned that already, I killed this vulnerability, I killed this sensitivity in me, and I became the strongest version of myself, the hardest version of myself, to be so hard and strong, to be able to just accept everything, and to be so strong not to so I don't have to hit twice in many ways. Okay. So I wonder how do you have any perspective on this? Like what men go through regarding vulnerability and connecting to the inner strength? Because right now I can see that's my superpower. But a couple of years ago, it was like, whoa, a huge area of shame.
Well, at one hand, I think it was a good choice in the sense of that many of us needs to really befriend our power before we can actually be vulnerable. And there is something with, letting, like when my son, who is 19 at the moment, he's like, there was a time when, what do you call it, say in English, like wrestling and like doing was the best medicine when he was in a bad mood and when he was like low. And I do believe it's important both for girls and for boys to access that, to live that power as well. But then if the price is that we kill the vulnerability, of course, then it's a problem. So I like to believe that they can coexist, that we have a sense of connecting to no power and to say, I'm not going to be overstepped. My boundaries are not going to be overstepped. To find that in myself and then saying, okay, but I'm not going to say no. I'm going to try to say yes and see what happens. And so I wouldn't say it's a bad thing, but if we get stuck there, it's a very sad place, very lonely place for many men.
I was stuck there for quite some time, but what you just said gave me a relief, a deep breath, because until today I was thinking that was the part of my life that was just that was the part of where I missed some things in my life, like I cut off myself from vulnerability, so I just lost something. And right now I look at it as a part of the way, of the journey to to just reclaim vulnerability back, but with a different perspective.
I'm glad. I'm really happy to hear your story with that.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, we have one man say something about vulnerability, other starts coming out too. That's a good thing.
It is a good thing.
Okay,
I had to.
Okay.
Sorry, Eva.
So maybe I would like to ask from women's side, like we are encouraged to be empathetic and so connected to others' feelings and needs and so on. So how can we reclaim power, not losing this, what we had, and which is also very precious.
Yeah, and of course, both men and women get like different stories and same stories, and to me, it comes down to connects to guilt. Like when we can sort out guilt, we can kind of sort out what we are responsible for in others. And to feel guilt for others is actually like it's a sign that we care. Otherwise, we would just be cold and cut people off. And then to know that even if I do feel guilt, to be able to say no and to stand it. If people call me cold, or people call me, not a real woman who doesn't care, or whatever, to actually to work on what guilt is in our lives is a big thing, I think, for women. And for men too, but for women, I think there is a certain kind of like inbuilt guilt that we should be there for others more than for ourselves.
Thank you for saying that, Liv, because in my world the guilt is a big part too, and they always have been. So
yeah, and it shows up a little bit different from different cultures, different families, different individuals. Yeah. But sometimes I know for Sweden too, when I was younger, now it's not the same, but when I was young, it was not cool for a woman to be powerful. We should be like dependent and not be strong and so on. the youth now in Sweden, the young women, they don't have the same, I think, which is hopeful, which is a great thing.
Yeah.
So how do you perceive this change? What do you think of this change? Like, is it a taste of regret? Like, it was not so much possible, with the previous generations, or is it like kind of hopeful for the future?
Right now, mostly hopeful for the future. The only thing I have, I'm a skier. I'm a cross-country skier, as I already said. And when I was young, when I was like 15, and I was wanting to do the long ski race in Sweden, which is called Vasaloppet, the women could not do it at that time. I was 15 when they started allowing women to do that. And then I already started to skip my skiing career. But that was, that's how close in time it is, where different kind of things were forbidden for women that is not now. So we have made huge shifts, I would say, in the world since then, at least some parts of the world.
Yes. Because it's worth to acknowledge that there are some parts of the world where it's still like middle age,
Yeah.
There's a beautiful question from Holly. Would you like to have a look at it?
Sure.
Liv, what does your internal dialogue sounds like when you are connected to your power in comparison to when you are not?
Yeah, such a good question, because 3 days ago, I was reading through part of this book that I'm writing, and I had a total self-critic attack. It's like, this is so bad, and I've rewritten it now 3 times. I will never be able to do this. This is just going to be so boring. I'm not going to let the book out at all, because this chapter will just ruin everything. Like, my inner voice was really starting to kill me. And I noticed the next morning, I usually write in the morning, I did not want to go and sit down at the computer. I had a sense like, well, today I'm going to do something else. And then I started noticing, there is something going on that I'm not aware of. So I sat down for some time and used a notebook to write down my thoughts, and started reclaiming some of that power. And the power, the voice inside was like, I can handle some self-criticism. I can see that I can take that, and probably there's some truth in this self-criticism. Probably there is something that I can listen to and actually work with. So for me, when I'm connected to power, my inner voice is like expanding. It's like being able to hold much more. It's being able to hold high and low. It's being able to see that I'm really good at this and I suck at this. It's like a sense of openness to more than just one choice. So to me, that self-empathy process is like being able to embrace more parts of me. And to me, that is the voice I have when I'm connected to power. It's like, yeah, it's not going to be perfect, and I'm still going to give it a go.
Sounds like a gym for capacity of your heart,
Mm-hmm.
It's like every time you do it, you just expand your capacity for taking more next time, and you're just being more kind to yourself in a crucial moment.
Yeah.
I have one question, because I work with businessmen, and the subject of vulnerability in business. Whoa, that's a big thing, because when I am vulnerable in business, it means there is a so big chance of losing the goal. Like the ice on the price is the main thing in the business. And when I start to become soft and sensitive with people, it means there is a chance I will not deliver the goals, or or my people will start thinking I'm soft, too soft, etc., etc. So I'm very curious on your perspective here.
Well, I'm not sure if I can grasp it, because it's a long thing, but I can say something about it. To me, it sounds also like when there is those kind of outer demands, and people start questioning vulnerability, I would say many times it's because they want to know that you can take it being so vulnerable. They would need to see some sign of you that you are able to be vulnerable, sensitive, caring, and show up with results. Then they probably will like you to have both. But if vulnerability means that you are not going to deliver results, that you are not going to show your capacity, your capability, then they will say, well, this person is not to be trusted. This person is, well, better not, trust this person so much. So I think it's how we are showing up vulnerable, not that we are showing up vulnerable.
Wonderful.
And it differs from different cultures, organizations, and so on. But I really think we can be vulnerable, and it's just, how.
So it's a matter of balancing in between left and right instead of choosing left or right. Because you need both. You need to be vulnerable to just be to make the business more human, let's say,
and to make good decisions, right? To be in connection with life and what's needed.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Liv. So we are coming soon to an end, and I wonder, this is a question for you who are listening. Is there any question you really would like to ask? This is kind of a last chance.
Okay, there is one more. Can you share how you have brought your vulnerability into business situations?
Well, I don't do that much in businesses other than mediation. And in mediation, being a mediator, I would say it is about balancing vulnerability. It's about showing the human path. And like Eva was saying, how to help people listen so they can make good decisions. And then I want to show up with, vulnerability when I'm starting to lose it, when I'm not having a sense that I can support them anymore, or when I'm not, I'm not sure if the mediation will actually be beneficial. And then to be able to verbalize that, and to maybe take a pause in the mediation and say, guys, we've been sitting here now for 1.5, 2 hours, and I'm starting to get a bit nervous that we're not getting to find our next step or the solution. I'm getting a bit nervous that we're not getting something out of the time we're spending. And I want to pause and hear from you. Do you see that we're working towards our goal? Do you see that we're moving forward? Because I'm not. So I can show that I'm not on top. I'm not, but I can show at the same time, this is what I want us to do about it. I want to hear from you guys. And if both of them says, no, it's not working, well, then it's a good choice. And then we pause it and do something else. And if they say, no, we are getting something out of it, I get, confirmed that I use my capacity to deal with a tough conversation. So I hope that was an example, Jared, that was meaningful in the question.
So I have a following question then. So can you be too much vulnerable? Is it even possible to be too vulnerable?
Well, if it means being fragile, yes. If it's like if we are too sensitive, if we're always working on tools that makes us sensitive, like self-empathy, empathy, If we're having an uneven balance on the things we work on, then yeah, I think it will eat us. So for me, again, I'm a cross-country skier, and one of the things that I do is that it's making me have a sense of power, like a physical power. I go out in the forest on my own, and I face the darkness, and I face tiredness. I do things that challenges myself, and then I work on things like empathy or being sensitive to nuances in music, or so to have a balance between the two, I think is crucial. Then I can be, the more powerful I can be, the more vulnerable I can be, because I can trust that I can always bring the power back if I'm losing track.
So if I'm getting it right, it means that there are some ways to just balance it more, or work on this vulnerability and power, and how to connect them, those two.
For
Wonderful.
sure.
Okay. I know that you're working on the workshops that we're going to make in Poland. So will that be a part of it, or this is something extra you're preparing?
Well, this is what the Eva and I have been talking about as the theme, like how to find that balance, how to enjoy those poles and have them both be alive, and to work on it, like not talk about it, but to work on it, in real life things.
Okay, so we can expect more there.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Is it gonna be scary? Because for some people it can be really scary to like open up, and so
I do hope it's gonna be scary. I do hope it's gonna be scary and safe. I mean, how can we hold each other when it's scary, so that we can see that fear and vulnerability is safe with the right company, or the right companionship.
So I can imagine, like the best companionship, starts in here or in here, and then you can find something in your surroundings. Liv, there is one more question. Would you be open to answer it?
Sure.
Okay. So being very sensitive to people's emotions, even unspoken, I still struggle with shaking them off myself, especially when people tell me their sad stories. Any suggestions how to protect myself?
Yeah. So if I understand the question right, it sounds like you're struggling with a very common thing, to mistake sympathy for empathy, to kind of want to be with the other, want to be there for someone, and then we start sympathize, and we kind of hold people's stories instead of hearing people's stories, instead of creating some kind of container for people. We are kind of holding the container for them. So to me, it's a tricky balance. It's not so easy, and many times we would pass over it, and we get what people call empathy fatigue, like the sense of where empathy feels just draining, not fun anymore, not joyfully being with someone else's story, but like a job. And then we probably need to take a step back and to remind ourselves that there, at some point, it is you and it's me, and only after you have a clear you, I have a clear me, we can have a we again. We can have a sense of shared space again. And sometimes when we listen to others, we become so much them that it's just draining us.
That sounds like an empathy from hell, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Marshall used to play with that. Like, the empathy from hell is when we feel super, super tired and drained afterwards, instead of saying, wow, I really was there for someone. Then I feel proud of that. I feel joyful that I was there to be with someone. So then we know we listened from hell. Yes.
Wonderful. All right.
yeah, So I have, for the last part, I would like to ask you guys, what are you bringing from this talk? Like, I'm feeling more powerful after this because I got this one thing I'm taking with myself, this part about like being perfect means we're not gonna have this beautiful deep relationship. I think it's gonna like guide me. So I wonder, what's your take, what you take away from here, from this meeting? If you would like to share, it would be great.
And in the meantime, Liv, if you want, there's one more question from Gosia, I think.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Thus, asking for help in the business is allowed. Often is considered as a weakness, but it could be helpful to show vulnerability and to connect with others. That's probably the case of middle and top management, usually, from my experience. Asking for help there is like, whoa, no way.
Yeah, and to me, from the time when I've done more business training, it is also many people are allergic to when we ask for help and we are not able to take a no. So most of the time, in most human relationships, it's okay to ask for support, as long as when we get a no, we say, okay, thank you, I just wanted to check and ask, and if you cannot help me with this, I'll find some other ways to do it. Otherwise, it will be perceived as vulnerability, and it will be fragility, and it will be held as they need to care for your work or to do your work. So it is not so much that we cannot ask for support. It's more, again, like, how do we ask for support? In what way and with what intention?
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, I love your saying there, Hannah, that there's a fine balance between fragility and vulnerability, and the difference is power. I think we should steal that, Hannah, for the training. Isn't that great?
Definitely. I love it.
Please write if there's more that you've learned. And yeah.
Okay, we'll give people some time to write if they decide to. And in the meantime, I'd love to share with you links to sign up for the workshop.
And we are meeting with Liv in May in Warsaw for 4 days. So it's going to be really deep.
So if you're local, it's a fantastic opportunity. If you're not so local, it's a fantastic opportunity to visit Poland. At this part of the year, it's a beautiful place to visit.
I agree.
So let me.
Gosia wrote that joy needs to be a part of the game. Thank you, Gosia, for reminding this one. I take it too with me.
Yeah.
Monica is delighted, like, with looking in this way to combine, to balance both sensitivity and power. And yeah, so Liv, thank you very much. It was really great hour with you. And I remember how much I love your insights and the way you look at things. And I'm really looking forward to meeting you, because we are meeting again for the webinar in March, the 5th of March. So if some questions will come up, just remember them and we will meet again to talk with Liv.
Also, you can write them back to the emails you received with the links, because we will collect them, and we want to give you something extra during the next webinar too. And it would be lovely to have your questions before.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, from myself, from my part, Liv, I really want to thank you for changing, these two significant perspectives. That can, just I look differently at the history of mine, which makes a difference. Thank you. Big thank today.
I'm glad we got to chat about that.
Okay, wonderful. So thank you for your presence. Thank you for your comments. Thank you very much for your questions, and for your willingness to come and yeah, we're waiting for more from both of you and us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eva. Thank you, Michael.
Pleasure.
Thank you to
And
all of
see you
you
soon.
for
Ciao.
Thank you all. Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.